Here's the cold, hard truth. When the grid goes down, life as you know it will flip upside down. The lights go out, the hum of modern life disappears, and suddenly, survival becomes the only thing that matters. The rules you follow today, they'll mean nothing. In that moment, every single thing you own will take on a new meaning. Some of those items, things you barely notice now, will become dangerous liabilities. Why? Because they'll scream opportunity to the wrong people. What you leave lying around in plain sight could be a flashing neon sign for trouble. Desperation changes people, and when resources are scarce, curiosity turns into something far worse. The items we're talking about, they're not weapons or obvious valuables. They're sitting in your kitchen, your garage, or even your backyard right now. Harmless today, but in a world without power, they'll become magnets for attention, the kind you don't want. If you're serious about being prepared, you need to know what these items are and why they'll put a target on your back. Don't wait until it's too late. Stick around and I'll show you 7 ordinary things you'll regret leaving out when the grid fails. Let's get into it. 1. Massive water containers. A beacon for trouble. When the grid collapses, water becomes the ultimate currency. Forget electricity, you can survive weeks without it. But water, you've got days, maybe less, depending on the conditions. That's why clean water instantly becomes the most critical resource in any survival scenario. But here's the catch. If it's valuable to you, it's even more valuable to someone who doesn't have it. And nothing screams, "I've got water," louder than a big, obvious container sitting out in the open. Think about it. Barrels, rain catchment systems, or even a stack of water jugs might seem like harmless prepper essentials today. But when the taps run dry and desperation sets in, those same containers become a flashing neon sign for anyone looking to quench their thirst. The moment people realize the water isn't coming back, all bets are off. Thirst doesn't care about property lines, fences, or the fact that you worked hard to store that water. It's primal, and it drives people to do things they'd never consider in normal times. Visible water storage is a liability, plain and simple. In rural areas, barrels sitting by the side of your house can be spotted from the road. In towns and suburbs, jugs left on porches, in driveways, or in open sheds are easy pickings for anyone passing by. And don't think people won't act on it. During past disasters, there have been countless reports of water tanks being siphoned, hoses cut, and even entire barrels rolled away in the dead of night. If it's visible, it's vulnerable. The solution? Hide it. Use opaque containers so no one can see the water level. Store them in garages, sheds, or behind fences. If you must keep them outside, disguise them with tarps, garden tools, or even fake structures. And don't forget to secure your water systems. Padlocks, hidden hoses, and strategic placement can make all the difference. In a grid-down scenario, water is life. But if the wrong person knows you have it, it could cost you everything. Generators are one of the most valuable tools in any blackout, but they're also one of the riskiest. Why? Because sound travels farther than you think, especially in a world without background noise. That low rumble can carry through neighborhoods, down streets, and into the ears of anyone desperate enough to follow it. And make no mistake, desperation makes people bold. There are countless stories of generators being stolen during disasters, not just from backyards, but from locked garages, sheds, and even inside homes. All it takes is a few minutes and a pair of bolt cutters, and your lifeline is gone. In a prolonged grid-down situation, a generator can mean the difference between survival and suffering. But only if you still have it when you need it. Because in a blackout, electricity isn't just power, it's a magnet, and the louder your generator hums, the faster it'll pull trouble straight to your door. Firewood stacks, a billboard for survival. When the grid fails in the dead of winter, staying warm isn't just about comfort, it's about survival. And nothing screams, "I'm prepared," louder than a neatly stacked pile of firewood. In normal times, it's just part of the scenery, but in a crisis, it's a giant billboard advertising that you have a heat source when everyone else is freezing. Firewood might seem old-fashioned, but in a prolonged outage, it's one of the most valuable fuels you can have. It's quiet, renewable, and doesn't rely on fragile supply chains. But that's exactly what makes it dangerous. For people without power, a visible pile of logs can mean the difference between enduring the cold or risking their lives, and when desperation sets in, people won't think twice about taking what isn't theirs. Theft is common enough. logs disappearing one by one or entire stacks vanishing overnight. But the bigger problem is what it signals. If you have enough wood to heat your home, people will assume you have other supplies, food, water, maybe even fuel. It paints a picture of preparedness, and in a crisis, that's all it takes to make you a target. The solution? Keep your firewood out of sight. Store the bulk of it in a locked shed, barn, or garage. If you must stack it outdoors, hide it behind fences, tarps, or natural barriers like hedges. Break up your supply into smaller, less noticeable piles in different locations. And here's a pro tip. Keep a small decoy stack in a visible spot. If someone decides to steal from you, they're less likely to find your main supply. And don't forget about the sound of chopping wood. If you're processing logs during a crisis, every swing of the axe is a signal to anyone nearby that you're stocked up. Do the work ahead of time. Split and stack your wood long before disaster strikes. In a grid-down winter, firewood can mean the difference between life and death. But if the wrong eyes see your supply, it could mean trouble. When the temperature drops and the power's out, heat becomes as precious as food. And once people realize you have it, they might not stop at asking. 4. Cooking fuel stashes. A recipe for trouble. When the grid goes down, keeping food edible and water safe isn't just a convenience. It's survival. Without electricity or gas service, you're left relying on whatever backup cooking methods you've prepared. That's where propane tanks, camp stove, canisters, and even bags of charcoal become your lifeline. But here's the harsh reality. Those same items can also make you a target. In normal times, a propane tank on the porch or a few bags of charcoal by the grill are nothing to think twice about. But in a prolonged blackout, they're a glaring signal that you can still cook, boil water, and feed your family when others can't. And trust me, desperation has a way of sharpening people's senses. The smell of food cooking alone can travel farther than you think, and if someone follows that scent to your home and spots a stash of fuel, you've just painted a bullseye on yourself. Cooking fuel isn't just about food, either. In a crisis, propane and similar fuels can be used to heat small spaces, power portable heaters, or even run certain tools. That makes them even more valuable and more dangerous to leave out in the open. During past disasters, there have been countless reports of fuel tanks being stolen right off porches, from unlocked sheds, or even disconnected from grills in the dead of night. Portable canisters are lightweight, easy to carry, and even easier to sell or trade, making them a prime target for thieves. So, how do you protect your supply? First, keep it out of sight. Store fuel canisters in locked sheds, garages, or weatherproof storage boxes. If outdoor storage is your only option, cover them with tarps, hide them behind fencing, or disguise them among less valuable items. And don't put all your eggs, or in this case, all your fuel, in one basket. Split your supply into multiple hidden locations so that if one stash is discovered, you still have enough to get by. In a grid-down scenario, cooking fuel is more than just a convenience. It's survival currency. The moment someone sees you have it, you stop being just another neighbor and start becoming a target. Protect it like your life depends on it, because it just might. 5. Solar gear. A silent signal for trouble. When the power goes out, most people are left in the dark, literally. Phones die, flashlights fade, and the world becomes eerily quiet. But for those who've prepared, solar chargers and panels become a lifeline, quietly turning sunlight into the one thing everyone suddenly craves: power. The problem? That lifeline can quickly become a liability if it's left out in the open. In normal times, a solar panel on a windowsill or a portable charger in the yard barely gets a second glance. But in a prolonged blackout, those same items scream, "I have power," and you don't. People won't just see a gadget, they'll see the ability to call for help, navigate, and stay connected when everyone else is cut off. And in a world where desperation rules, that makes your solar gear a prime target. The value of solar equipment in a crisis goes far beyond charging a phone. Small panels can power LED lights, radios, rechargeable batteries, and even medical devices. To someone desperate, that makes them priceless. Portable panels, in particular, are easy to grab and disappear with, slipped into a bag or hidden under a coat in seconds. And theft isn't the only risk. A visible solar panel can signal that you have other backup systems, generators, fuel, or stocked supplies. In a world without power, it's like waving a flag that says, "I'm prepared." And flags attract attention. So, How do you keep your solar gear safe? Start by keeping portable chargers indoors when they're not in use. If you need to charge outside, do it in low visibility areas like fenced yards or behind buildings. Fixed panels are harder to hide, but you can still reduce their visibility by placing them on less exposed sides of structures, blending them with roofing, or using camouflage covers when they're not in use. And remember, charging in short, irregular intervals is better than leaving panels out all day where they can be spotted by anyone passing by. In a blackout, solar panels and chargers are more than just gadgets. They're survival tools. But the more they stand out, the more you risk losing them. And once they're gone, so is your quiet, dependable source of power. Protect them like your life depends on it, because in a crisis, it just might. 6 medical kits, a lifeline you can't afford to lose. When the grid goes down and hospitals are either overwhelmed or completely shut, medical supplies become more valuable than gold. Bandages, antiseptics, painkillers, and even basic first aid tools suddenly hold the power to save lives. But here's the problem. Too many people leave their medical kits in plain sight, not realizing they're advertising a resource that could make them a target. In normal times, a first aid kit hanging in your garage or sitting in your kitchen cabinet is just smart planning. But in a prolonged crisis, those same supplies are survival essentials. A deep cut, a bad burn, or even a simple infection can turn deadly when professional care is no longer an option. And when people are desperate, they'll do whatever it takes to get their hands on what they need. Medical supplies don't just attract attention because of their life-saving potential. They're also incredibly valuable for trade. In post-disaster scenarios, a single bottle of antibiotics or a roll of gauze can be bartered for food, fuel, or even shelter. That makes your visible stash a temptation for thieves and even people you thought you could trust. A kit left out during a visit or spotted through a window could be remembered and revisited when desperation sets in. The solution? Make your medical supplies invisible. Store them in locked drawers, opaque containers, or disguised boxes that don't scream first aid. Keep a small portable kit for emergencies, but hide the bulk of your supplies in a secure, climate-controlled location. And don't put all your eggs in one basket. Split your supplies into multiple hidden caches, so losing one doesn't leave you empty-handed. Also, stay on top of expiration dates. Medicines and bandages that have gone bad won't do you any good when you need them most. In a world without hospitals, your medical kit isn't just another tool, it's a lifeline. But once others know you have it, you'll never be the only one counting on it. Keep it hidden, keep it secure, and make sure it's there when you need it most. 7. Water filtration systems, the ultimate survival tool. When the grid fails, the taps might still run for a while. But how long will that last? And more importantly, what kind of water will come out? In many disasters, clean drinking water is the first thing to disappear. Without a reliable filtration system, you're left boiling questionable water over dwindling fuel or risking illness from whatever you can find in a stream, pond, or rain barrel. That's why water filters, purification pumps, and even simple filter straws are absolute survival essentials. But here's the catch. Leaving them out in the open could be one of the biggest mistakes you make. In normal times, a portable filter on your counter or a gravity-fed system in your garage is just another household item. But when bottled water is gone and municipal supplies are contaminated, those same tools become priceless. Water filtration gear has 2 major risks in a crisis. It's portable and irreplaceable. Once stores are empty, you won't find another one. And unlike a hidden stash of food, a water filter is small enough to slip into a bag or pocket, making it an easy target for thieves. But theft isn't the only danger. If word gets out that you have filtration equipment, you could find yourself overwhelmed by people demanding to use it. Even those you trust today might feel entitled to your gear when their family is thirsty. The best way to protect your filtration systems is to keep them out of sight. Store them in secure, sealed containers and only bring them out when absolutely necessary. If you're using them outdoors, do it in low visibility areas, and rotate between different water sources to avoid creating a predictable pattern. And if possible, have backups. A small, inexpensive filter for public use and a more advanced system kept entirely private. Water is the one thing you can't live without. In a blackout, your filtration gear might be the most valuable item you own. But the moment someone else knows you have it, it's no longer just yours. Protect it like your life depends on it, because it does. In survival, what you have is important. but what others think you have can be just as dangerous. Visibility is vulnerability, and in a world without rules, even the smallest detail can make you a target. 8. Batteries and power banks. Silent lifelines that scream value. When the grid goes down, the world plunges into darkness, and the devices we rely on every day become useless hunks of plastic and metal. But for those who've prepared, batteries and power banks become the silent heroes of survival. They keep flashlights shining, radios buzzing, and phones alive, offering a lifeline to information, communication, and safety. However, these small, unassuming items can quickly turn into a massive liability if left in plain sight. In normal times, a pack of AA batteries on the counter or a power bank charging by the window is nothing to think about. But in a prolonged blackout, they're a flashing sign that you're better prepared than most. People will see more than just a power source. They'll see the ability to stay connected, navigate, and even call for help when others can't. And that kind of resource is worth its weight in gold during a crisis. Theft isn't the only risk. Batteries and power banks are small, portable, and easy to pocket, making them prime targets for anyone desperate enough to take them. And once word spreads that you have a stash, you could find yourself overwhelmed by people asking or demanding to use them. Even those you trust today might not hesitate to take what they need when the lights go out. The solution? Keep your batteries and power banks out of sight. Store them in secure, hidden locations, and only bring them out when absolutely necessary. If you're charging a power bank, do it in a low-visibility area, and avoid leaving it unattended. And don't forget to rotate your battery stockpile. Dead batteries won't do you any good when you need them most. In a grid-down scenario, power is survival. But the moment someone else knows you have it, you're no longer just prepared. You're a target. Protect your power sources like your life depends on it, because in a blackout, it just might. 9. Canned food stashes. A silent invitation for trouble. When the grid fails, food becomes more than just sustenance. It becomes survival currency. And while fresh food spoils quickly, canned goods are the ultimate fallback. They're long-lasting, easy to store, and packed with the calories you'll need to keep going. But here's the harsh truth. A visible stash of canned food is like a beacon for anyone who's hungry and desperate. In normal times, a pantry full of canned goods is just smart planning. But in a prolonged crisis, it's a flashing sign that you're better stocked than most. People won't just see food, they'll see security, comfort, and the ability to outlast the chaos. And that kind of resource is worth risking everything for when supplies run out. Theft isn't the only danger. A visible stash of food can attract attention from neighbors, passers-by, and even friends who might not think twice about taking what they need when hunger sets in. And once word spreads that you have food, you'll find yourself dealing with more than just thieves, you'll be dealing with desperation. The best way to protect your food supply is to keep it hidden. Store canned goods in secure, out-of-sight locations like locked cabinets, basements, or even disguised storage containers. Avoid keeping all your food in one place. Split your stash into multiple hidden caches, so that losing one doesn't leave you empty-handed. And if you must access your food, do it discreetly. The less people see, the safer you'll be. In a world without grocery stores, food is power. But the moment someone else knows you have it, you're no longer just a neighbor. You're a target. Protect your food supply like your life depends on it. Because in a crisis, it does. 10. Tools and hardware. The keys to survival and a target for theft. When the grid goes down, tools and hardware become more than just handy. They become essential. A simple wrench, a sturdy hammer, or even a roll of duct tape can mean the difference between fixing a problem and watching it spiral out of control. But here's the catch. Those same tools can also make you a target if they're left out in the open. In normal times, a toolbox in the garage or a set of tools on the workbench is just part of everyday life. But in a prolonged crisis, they're a sign that you're prepared to handle whatever comes your way. People won't just see tools, they'll see the ability to repair, build, and survive when others can't. And that kind of resource is worth stealing when desperation sets in. Theft isn't the only risk. A visible stash of tools can signal that you have other valuable resources: fuel, food, or even a generator. And once word spreads that you're well equipped, you could find yourself dealing with more than just thieves. You could become a target for anyone looking to take advantage of your preparedness. The solution? Keep your tools and hardware out of sight. Store them in locked cabinets, sheds, or garages, and avoid leaving them in plain view. If you're using tools outdoors, do it discreetly and avoid drawing attention to your work. And don't forget to secure your storage areas. Locks, alarms, and even simple barriers can make a big difference. In a grid-down scenario, tools are more than just equipment. They're survival essentials. But the moment someone else knows you have them, you're no longer just prepared. You're a target. Protect your tools like your life depends on it, because in a crisis, it just might. 11 gardens and crops, a green flag for trouble. When the grid goes down, growing your own food becomes one of the smartest survival strategies. A backyard garden or a small crop of vegetables can provide a steady source of nutrition when grocery stores are empty. But here's the harsh reality: a visible garden isn't just a sign of self-sufficiency, it's a giant green flag that screams, "I have food." In normal times, a garden is a peaceful hobby, a way to enjoy fresh produce and save a little money. But in a prolonged crisis, it's a magnet for attention. People won't just see plants, they'll see meals, sustenance, and a way to feed their families when they're desperate. And desperation doesn't respect fences, property lines, or hard work. Theft is only part of the problem. A visible garden can also signal that you're well prepared in other ways. If you have the resources to grow food, people may assume you also have water, tools, and other supplies worth taking. And once word spreads, you could find yourself dealing with more than just hungry neighbors. You could become a target for anyone looking to take what they need. The solution: keep your garden as low profile as possible. Use fencing, hedges, or tarps to block it from view. Consider growing less obvious crops. Root vegetables like potatoes and carrots are harder to spot than tomatoes or corn. And if possible, split your garden into smaller hidden plots rather than one large visible area. In a grid-down scenario, a garden can mean the difference between hunger and survival. But the moment someone else knows you have it, you're no longer just a gardener, you're a target. Protect your crops like your life depends on it, because in a crisis, it just might. 12 fuel reserves, a ticking time bomb of attention. When the power goes out, fuel becomes one of the most valuable resources you can have. Whether it's gasoline, diesel, or even firewood, fuel keeps generators running, vehicles moving, and homes warm. But here's the brutal truth. A visible stash of fuel is like a ticking time bomb, waiting to explode with the wrong kind of attention. In normal times, a few gas cans in the garage or a stack of firewood by the house is just part of being prepared. But in a prolonged blackout, those same items become survival gold. People won't just see fuel, they'll see the ability to stay warm, cook food, and keep moving when everyone else is stuck. And that kind of resource is worth stealing, no matter the risk. Theft isn't the only danger. A visible fuel stash can also signal that you have other valuable supplies, generators, tools, or even food. And once word gets out, you could find yourself dealing with more than just thieves. You could become a target for anyone desperate enough to take what they need. The solution: keep your fuel reserves out of sight. Store gasoline and diesel in locked, ventilated sheds or garages, and keep firewood behind fences or tarps. If you're using fuel, do it discreetly. Don't let the sound of a generator or the sight of a roaring fire give you away. And don't forget to rotate your stockpile. Stale fuel won't do you any good when you need it most. In a grid-down scenario, fuel is more than just a resource. It's survival currency. But the moment someone else knows you have it, you're no longer just prepared. You're a target. Protect your reserves like your life depends on it, because in a crisis, it does. 13 communication devices. A signal you don't want to send. When the grid fails, staying informed and connected becomes a top priority. Radios, walkie-talkies, and satellite phones can provide critical updates, coordinate plans, and even call for help when traditional communication lines are down. But here's the hard truth. Visible communication devices are more than just tools. They're a signal that you're better equipped than most. In normal times, a radio on the counter or a walkie-talkie in the garage is just another gadget. But in a prolonged crisis, they're a sign of preparedness. People won't just see a device, they'll see the ability to stay ahead of the chaos, access information, and coordinate survival efforts. And that kind of capability is worth taking when desperation sets in. Theft isn't the only risk. A visible communication device can also signal that you have other valuable resources, batteries, power sources, or even a stockpile of supplies. And once word spreads, you could find yourself dealing with more than just curious neighbors. You could become a target for anyone looking to take advantage of your preparedness. The solution? Keep your communication devices out of sight. Store them in secure, hidden locations, and only bring them out when absolutely necessary. If you're using a radio or walkie-talkie, do it discreetly and avoid broadcasting your location or plans. And don't forget to secure your power sources. Without batteries or chargers, your devices are useless. In a grid-down scenario, communication is more than just a convenience. It's a lifeline, but the moment someone else knows you have it, you're no longer just connected. You're a target. Protect your devices like your life depends on it. Because in a crisis, it just might.